I don't know why I thought this would be easy. Catch a train, go home, fix things, right? But the second I stepped out of the cab and saw that station, I knew something was off. The place was falling apart, like it hadn't seen life in years. The lights flickered weakly, casting these weird, long shadows over the platform. It was dead silent, like the world had forgotten this place existed. There were only a couple of other people waiting, if you could even call them people. They were just there. Faces blank, no expression, not moving. Creepy as hell. In the train? Man, it looked like it was barely holding together, covered in rust and grime, like it hadn't run in decades. But I had no choice. I needed to get home, fast. I could feel something in the air, like I was being watched, but I told myself it was just nerves. I had to get on that train. I stepped inside, and the feeling only got worse. The interior was filthy, dark stains on the seats, dust thick in the air. And that smell, it was sharp, rotten, like something had died in there a long time ago. I tried to find a seat, but the other passengers, they didn't even glance at me. They just stared straight ahead, frozen, like they were part of the train itself. When the train jerked to life and started moving, it hit me. I wasn't just leaving the station. I was going somewhere I might never come back from. And whatever was waiting for me at the end, it wasn't home. That first night, it was anything but normal. The train was moving through this endless stretch of darkness, and all I could hear was the rumble of the tracks, until I didn't. Instead, I started hearing these weird noises from the hallway outside my cabin. Heavy footsteps, like someone wearing boots, followed by these muffled whispers. I couldn't make out what they were saying, but it was unsettling, like voices that weren't supposed to be there. I tried to ignore it at first, but curiosity got the better of me. When I stood up to check, the lights flickered, you know, the kind that makes your heart skip a beat. Every time they dimmed, I could swear I saw shadows darting around, quick, too fast to catch, like something where someone was moving through the train, but by the time I stepped into the hallway, it was empty. Completely deserted. But the air, it was freezing, way colder than it should have been. Like something unnatural was hanging around. The next morning, I woke up feeling uneasy, like I hadn't really slept. That's when I noticed something weird on the floor of my cabin. An old newspaper, crumpled up and yellowing with age. The headline? It talked about a string of disappearances on a night train, decades ago. It looked ancient, but the story was disturbingly similar to what I was going through. That's when it hit me, this wasn't just a regular ride. This train, it was something else. Something wrong. After a few days on this godforsaken train, things started to feel off. Real off. The other passengers, the ones I barely noticed at first, they weren't normal anymore. Their clothes began to look filthy, stained like they'd been wearing them for weeks. Their faces grew pale, almost gray, and their eyes, man, their eyes were dead. They just stared into space, like they were seeing something the rest of us couldn't. One night, I worked up the courage to talk to one of them, this old guy who'd been sitting in the same spot for what felt like forever. I asked him where he was going, but he didn't even acknowledge me at first. When he finally spoke, it wasn't to me, he just mumbled, incoherent words, like he was in some kind of trance. And the creepiest part? He wasn't looking at me. He was staring right through me, like I wasn't even there. That's when it hit me, these people, they weren't alive. Or at least, not in any way that made sense. I couldn't take it anymore, so I started searching the train, hoping to find some kind of explanation. That's when I stumbled upon this old baggage car. The door was locked, but I wasn't about to stop there. I forced it open, and inside, there were all these old, dusty passenger tickets. Some were torn, others crumpled, but every single one of them was dated, decades old. How the hell were they still here, perfectly preserved? Then I found it. A letter, tucked away with the rest of the junk. It was short, but it chilled me to the bone. Don't stay on this train. Get off before it's too late. I didn't know what to think. Too late for what? But deep down, I already knew. This train, it wasn't taking me anywhere good. It finally hit me, like a punch to the gut. This train? It wasn't taking me anywhere, it was a trap. A one-way ticket for lost souls, dragging us towards something far worse than just a missed stop. It was like a floating purgatory, gathering up the damned, one by one. Every time we passed one of those deserted stations, I'd see more people get on. They all looked the same, empty, lifeless, like they'd given up long ago. They weren't passengers, they were prisoners, just like me. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to get off this train. I thought maybe, just maybe, if I could jump at the next stop, I'd have a chance. But when I tried, I found every door locked tight. The windows wouldn't budge either, no matter how hard I pushed. It was like I was sealed inside. Even worse, I felt eyes on me. The other passengers, no, those things, they were watching. They didn't move, didn't speak, but I could feel their cold, dead stares, tracking my every step. The air in the corridor had changed, too. It wasn't just cold, it was freezing, like the warmth was being sucked out of the train. The lights flickered and dimmed, casting long, eerie shadows. My breath hung in the air, and I knew I wasn't alone anymore. Something else was on this train, something that didn't want me to leave. It happened when I least expected it. The train screeched to a halt at a station I'd never seen before, one that wasn't on any map. The place was all wrong, too quiet, too empty, with this thick fog that clung to everything. I stepped off the train, and that's when I saw it. Or him. A figure, barely human, floating just above the ground. It looked like a ghost, but its eyes, those cold, empty eyes, were the worst part. He, or it, was the real conductor. Without moving its mouth, it spoke, straight into my mind. This train, it said, isn't for the living. It's for those whose souls are heavy with sin, with regret. You boarded because you have unfinished business, but now, there's a price to pay. No one leaves without settling their debts. My chest tightened. I tried to run, to escape this nightmare, but the station twisted around me, like some kind of maze made of fog and endless tracks. No matter which way I turned, I ended up back at the train. I could see the other passengers now, standing at the edge of the platform, watching me. But they weren't people anymore. They were twisted, broken things, shadows of their former selves. Their faces, the pain was unbearable just to look at. I felt a force pulling me back toward the train, dragging me toward my seat. The others didn't move, they didn't need to. I knew they'd all gone through the same thing, and now it was my turn. In the end, I couldn't fight it. I sat down in my seat, feeling myself fade, like my body was dissolving into the same lifeless void as the other passengers. My thoughts were filled with nothing but regret. The train lurched forward, heading toward the unknown, and I realized I was never getting off. This was my eternity now. Just another empty soul, waiting for the next one to join us.